Hi. Okay, so it's story time. I've been asked probably a gazillion more than a gazillion times, when am I going to write a book? I grew up really unusual. And I picked this bold print life this time. And I don't really like to bring the past into the present unless it's transformational. Because where I came from and the life that I had, although it's very glamorous and glitzy and Stephen King and Scarface and, all of these outrageous ways of living and highly unusual and dramatic, unless I've transformed it into a real healing thing, to me it's just not that interesting. And there's so much drama and so much shit going on in the world, and I don't really care to bring in that part of it into the light, except for transformation. But I want to talk today, I'm going to go back to, there was a period in my life where from 0 to 6th grade, I lived with my mom, and my brothers lived with my dad, and my sister and I grew up together with being 3 single women with a stepdad that was abusive. And that's kind of set the tone after I had already been a blue baby when I was born and had 4 complete blood transfusions the first day of my life. So I came in with a lot of trauma where my mom's blood was trying to kill me, and then the doctors didn't even know that kids felt pain and separated me from my mom. So I didn't have your usual entry level. And then from there, my mom and dad split up, pretty crazy scene, and I was only a year old. And then in my family, there was a lot of insanity. And the result of it is that my sister ended up being pretty angry, and I ended up trying to clean that all up. And so, when my mom would say, go to your room, my sister would go, fuck you, I didn't ask to be born. And I would turn around and go to my room and clean my room and sneak out and clean my sister's room, clean my mom's room, do whatever I could to try to make it right. And the more I tried to make it right, we went this way and this way. And I learned later that neither one of us was healthy, and to swing that pendulum right down the middle and have good balance between the two behaviors. And so that was really powerful for me, that she wasn't wrong, I wasn't wrong, we just handled it differently. And that being said, fast forwarding to when I was about 12 years old and my sister moved to San Francisco with my dad, who was this genius and this inventor and really rich man, and also an alcoholic, and very wealthy, and brilliant mind, and photographic memory, and gorgeous, just a stunning Robert Redford looking family, and most of them. So, when I moved there, my dad just hated my brother Patrick with a passion that I've never seen. Like, my dad and my older brother would just literally beat on my brother Patrick in front of me, and it was so hard to watch because I had the deepest love for my brother Patrick. And so a lot of stuff happened where I loved my daddy, but I just couldn't stand my dad. And my stepmom was just a lady who was about to go into the convent, so to speak, when she met my dad. Very, very, just a lady. And she also really, everyone loved my dad, and he was just lovable. And I don't know exactly what started off for them. I wasn't around, but I know they had a pretty glamorous life. And then she got pregnant with my little sister, and everything changed. And my dad just fell in love with my little sister, Shauna, like I've never seen anybody love anybody. He'd wake her up in the middle of the night when he got home drunk after closing the bar, and he'd play with her, and he loved her so much. And then my stepmom got pregnant again, and we had another one coming. So I'm 12, and I just moved into this new house, meeting these family members, and now all of a sudden I'm like full-time babysitter. And they're going off to Reno all the time. They're always like just going to go to the Reno for the weekend, but they've gone for a week or a month or whatever. So, we'd scrap. Me and my grandma would scrap to get Shauna to school and to get my other little sister to school, and diapers and whatever, banking and stuff. Like, my dad just left all these businesses, and for us to all try to pull it together. And the businesses were crazy. I was working down at the bar, restaurant, a huge bar, live music every weekend, the most popular place in San Francisco, just off the hook. And we had all the cops and all the robbers and all the DEA and the supervisors of the police department. Everybody was there. And we were spinning a lot of hats. And between having the bars, the restaurants, the delis, and the beauty shops, and my dad having the electronics businesses and being an inventor, you know, when he would come home, he'd be in a coma for a long time trying to recover from all of his runs up in Reno. And he would take us to Reno sometimes, and we'd drive up in our Cadillac, and the red carpets would roll out, and we'd get VIP'd in front of all the lines, and we had everything comped all the time. And I lived in the Sahara for 7 months on the 17th floor or the 7th floor, I can't remember. And I lived in the top of the Harris for a while, the whole penthouse. And so, you know, that's what I grew up with. I grew up with, you know, we're the McGowans, and things are really different. And it looked really glamorous. We had a mini mansion, we had a beautiful house, but it was insane inside. I mean, literally, my dad was insane. Like, I remember him just throwing glasses across the, you know, the upstairs at my brother, and, you know, just violence, so much violence. Like, I'd go down to the bar, and they'd all beat on people and get away with stuff, just horrible stuff when they were all drinking. And at one point, my stepmom left after a while. It got really insane. My dad was having an affair with this woman who was a pit boss and allegedly got her pregnant. And meanwhile, he was projecting on my stepmom that her second pregnancy was not his. And I knew that wasn't true. I was there, and I was very coherent. And so that story went on to where my dad would, you know, literally have me smoking cocaine for 9 days, 9 nights, no sleep, and give me one hit while he would do like 500 of them, and then try to get me to throw my stepmom under the bus and say, yes, she had this affair, which I would never do. And I was a drug addict at that time. And in order to get the drugs I needed, all I had to do was throw her under the bus, and then I would have gotten more instead of been like, you know, serum camped, true serum camped with these drugs. Like, just tell me the truth, and then you can have some more. And, you know, she was in cahoots, and you're in cahoots with her. Like, he lost it. And I stood that lie for until I left, because I was not going to, you know, dumb down and act like that. My truth and what I knew was true was that my stepmom didn't do that. I was not going to do that to just fit into this family. So I knew that this family lie got bigger and bigger and bigger, and I had to get out because I couldn't endorse it. My soul couldn't endorse it. As much as I wanted to be a drug addict, my husband could provide my habit. We were going to live happily ever after. It was normal at that time to be high society and doing massive amounts of drugs. Something inside me was like a moth to a flame, where I knew in my heart of hearts that I couldn't live this life. And everyone else, it was normal in the 70s and 80s. Everyone was just doing that I knew. But for me, my spirit was craving spirituality. And, you know, there was a lot that led up to me not feeling like high society was where it's at. Like, all the money in the world couldn't replace some of the damage. I will never forget this one time when my dad thought that Lori, this lady, was having an affair, so we chartered a plane, and we were smoking cocaine the whole way there, freebase torches and all this shit, just crazy. Like, it was just insane, the stuff that we were doing, but he wanted to go catch Lori and her affair. And so we're on this chartered plane, like just me and my dad in this tiny little plane in the middle of the night, because he knew that she knew he couldn't get there. There were no flights at that time. He was trying to, you know, catch her. And at that time, he was so crazy. And we had a briefcase, and it had 4 dishes in it that you would put cocaine on. And then these basic solution, and ammonia solution, and ether, and a torch. Not the propane part, but the torch. And he made me carry this briefcase on the way back we were catching a regular plane on the way back home. And I was walking with my dad, next to me. And he said, "Carry this." And he hands me the briefcase. And at that time, when you went through the airport, it was just a little conveyor belt that you'd set your stuff on. It had a blue light on top and a little machine that it would run through. And that was it. And then you could run through the airports. Like, there was no security. There was none of that stuff. We did the OJ all the time. We were always late. We missed a lot of planes. A lot of planes we missed. And when my dad handed me that briefcase, and I knew that there were 4 ounces of cocaine in that vitamin C jar. And I had been a mule. I had bringing it back and forth I'm not even going to tell you how, but anyway, he had me, muling for a long time. And I was used to that. But this time, when my dad handed that to me, and I set the briefcase on the conveyor belt, and he kept walking. And I saw this man's back, and he didn't turn his head back. He didn't act like he knew me. And then the blue light went off on top of the conveyor belt. And these 3 people, and I barely saw them because all I could see was my dad not looking back. And I was like, he's not looking back. He's totally not looking back. Like, he's not coming back for me. And they're going through the briefcase, and he's not turning around and coming back. And I just watched. And I was so mad. And when they got done, I was just like, I wasn't scared. I was just mad that, and they didn't look in the vitamin C jar. I think they saw the torch and they thought it was a gun under the x-ray machine. But they let me go. And I grabbed the briefcase and I started walking, and then slowly he slowed down and I caught up to him. And he literally stood, kept walking, didn't even look at me. He talked out of the side of his mouth and he said, "I was going to come back for you." And that was my daddy. And I loved him, but I started to hate him. At that time, he started doing the most insane, heartbreaking things. I had a hitman living in my house. This is a mini mansion in San Francisco, and such a prominent person. And my dad has me doing the most crazy stuff. Like, he made me go down to the IRS with no shoes on and tell him that he had cancer when he was late for his IRS stuff. Like, he set up this stage for me to, like, be his mule for covering for all of this insane stuff. Like, his, patent attorney would call and he'd say, "Oh, tell him that I'm in a meeting." But he would be just laying in bed hungover. So I was taught so young, like, all lines are blurred. Everything is, I don't know, just crazy. And during that time, he was saying he was going to kill himself all the time. And so the beauty of this story is that when my dad kept walking that day, I really learned you come in alone and you go out alone. And that, loving is an inside job. And I learned that I got to go to a higher source for security and safety, because I'm not getting it from my family here, my people. And I also learned that I wasn't safe.